and a warm welcome to all our viewers. I'm Dr. Shatil from the Clinical Engagement team here at DocPlexus. Welcome to a brand new session of the DocPlexus MasterSeries. As medical professionals, we are acutely aware of the profound influence nutrition exerts on human health and well-being. Nutrition is not merely a matter of sustenance, it is the cornerstone of health, influencing every facet of our life from the very beginning to the twilight years. Within this context, the topic of malnutrition from womb to tomb emerges as critical area of concern and study. And to tell us more on this, we have with us today Dr. Amitav Banerjee and Dr. Mansi Patil. Dr. Amitav Banerjee is the Professor and Head Department of Community Medicine, Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pune. He has served in the Indian Armed Forces from 1978 to 2005. He started working as a professor and subsequently as the head of the Department of the Community Medicine at Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pune. Dr. Banerjee has published over 100 papers in national and international journals and has undertaken several research projects. He has also delivered many keynote addresses at national and international conferences.
Greetings to everyone. I am happy to come on this DocPlexus platform, discuss malnutrition problems from womb to tomb. I will be giving an overview as a public health overview of the nutrition problem, and Dr. Mansi will be covering in more details, particularly about the requirements in each age group and also the clinical aspects. So as the topic title suggests, that impact malnutrition can be from the fetal life in uterus. If the nutrition of the mother is not adequate, the child suffers intrauterine growth retardation. And this has been, studies have found that babies, newborn who are born with low birth weight, they can have later life, the impact can last a lifetime. They are more prone to non-communicable diseases, particularly diabetes and insulin tolerance, insulin resistance later in life, which is known as central obesity. So malnutrition in childhood or during fetal life, which is measured by low birth weight, can have a impact in later life also. And besides that, in India, we have got a high burden of under 5 malnutrition also. We'll just rapidly go over the figures. And then we have got other micronutrient and macronutrient deficiencies also, like vitamin D and B12 deficiency, vitamin A deficiency. Then middle age and right to malnutrition problems can persist up to old age also. And now we are having also, particularly in the affluent classes, we are having the problem of overnutrition like obesity and unhealthy diet, fast food, high consumption of sugars. So these are some of our social problems which are reflecting in our dietary habits, which can have an adverse impact on health. So as I just mentioned, intrauterine growth retardation, the indicator is low birth weight, and the latest All India survey, NFHS National Family Health Survey 5, 2019-21, defined low birth weight as birth weight below 2.5 kg, and around 20% of newborns in India are low birth weight, which can have grave implications in the long run. And these surveys are very large surveys, and they have a good reliability over survey covering over around 1.5 lakh women, mothers. Then causes are the age of mothers, very elderly or very young mothers, teenage. Then birth interval less than, low educational level, gender, and smoking or tobacco use and alcohol use can be causes of low birth weight or intrauterine growth retardation. So these are some of the factors which interact: low birth weight, behavioral factors, service availability, antenatal care, poor antenatal care during pregnancy, maternal health, maybe mother may be having some disease, anemia in mothers, very common. Anemia is a very common in India. More than 50% of women have got anemia in the same survey. Then status, these are some very surprising results. These are the state-wise prevalence of low birth weight. The red is the higher side, more than 20% low birth weight. So surprisingly, Punjab, if you see the red figure at the top is Punjab state, has got the highest incidence of low birth weight. Usually we expect that Punjab people are having good diet, but somehow there is, otherwise other parts of India, the lowest figures are in the northeast, that is the green, that is below 10% or below 5%. Northeast has got the women's status is higher in northeast, so that may be one reason. Maybe it has to do with the status of women, because where the status of women is good, their nutrition is good, and their babies also may be healthier. So perhaps it may have to do something with that, requires more study. So these are some of the figures from the previous survey and the subsequent survey. Stunting is less height for age. It was around 38% in the 5 years ago in the last survey, and it has slightly fallen from 38%, it has come to 35%. But still it is quite a appreciable, under 5. 35% of our under 5s are stunted. That's not a very good sign. Wasting is less weight for height. From 21%, it has come down just to 19%. Underweight is less weight for age. This is usually the indicator most widely used. That's the growth chart we have got. So 35% of our under 5 are underweight. 35% it was in the last survey, and this present survey, latest survey 2019-2021, 32%. So almost 1/3 or 32% of our under 5 children are underweight. So that's not a good sign, because this, as I said, malnutrition in childhood can lead to adult health problems also. Then causes, we know, infections like diarrhea, measles, infection causes more malnutrition, and malnutrition makes the child more susceptible to infection. So sort of a vicious cycle is set up. Then inadequate breastfeeding and poor weaning practices. This will be dealt in detail by Dr. Mansi. Then anemia is a big problem, and latest survey showed 55% of our women and children were anemic. And now the government has started a program of fortified rice with iron in public distribution system, but there are uncertainties about how much impact it will make, because there were studies did not confirm. This has not been well tested, so we don't know how much impact it will have. The experts are doubtful whether this fortified rice will solve the problem. And another concern is that from the next survey, the government of India have decided to drop the hemoglobin level measurement in this national health service. So this will be difficult to know where we are heading as far as anemia is concerned. The reason was that the indicator was not very reliable of hemoglobin measurement was not very reliable, but we should have some indicator to monitor our anemia level, which is a major public health problem, not only in children, also in women. Then other hidden problems are vitamin D deficiency and B12 deficiency. It has been noted that they are associated with many chronic diseases and associated with lowered immunity also. Even in the COVID pandemic, people with vitamin D deficiency not only were more susceptible to viral infections, but their response to vaccines was also poor. There have been studies where the people who had low levels of vitamin D did not elicit good immune response to vaccine also. And of course, it is related to bone health, particularly in women after menopause. And B12 deficiency is also high in India. Vitamin D deficiency is almost up to 60 to 70 to 90% different studies of vitamin D deficiency. And vitamin B12 have also reported almost 40% deficient. And vitamin B12 is a problem because it's not easily available in diet, vegetarian or even in non-vegetarian diet, because it is unstable vitamin. So cooking will destroy whatever vitamin B12 is, even in a non-vegetarian diet. So our department, D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pimpri, carried out some studies, recent studies. We have one odd study we have published, and other we are in the process of publication. So we identified the B12 and vitamin D deficiencies. So these were some of our results which showed quite high level of vitamin D deficiency and also associated with diabetes mellitus. We did a study of vitamin D levels in diabetic patients. We found slightly lower, and we found let us see, vitamin D. We found that 39% in urban area were deficient of vitamin D, and surprisingly in rural area also 48% were insufficient, that is the yellow color, were deficient in vitamin D. And 27% of urban people had adequate vitamin D, and 39% had adequate vitamin D, and deficient was 34% in urban, and in rural 13% were deficient. So almost 30 to 40% rural and urban, both type of people are deficient in vitamin D as found in our study. Similarly, this is the B12 level. In urban area, we found the red shows the deficient. The red, you see more than 50%, 52% in urban area, in our field practice area, had vitamin B12 deficiency, and 65% in rural area had B12 deficiency. And the B12 deficiency, besides the immediate problems of B12 deficiency in metabolism and other things, B12 deficiency is also associated with increased risk factor for coronary artery disease because of increased homocysteine level. So this is something, a hidden factor. Our diet may be deficient in B12, and as I said, because of our cooking practices, or whatever level in B12 is in our diet will not be adequate. So we may have to consider this also. And this is we try to identify whether it is related to vegetarian or non-vegetarian diet. So in a vegetarian diet, we found 17 to 25% were deficient. This is the D3 level, D3 vegetarian, and we found sufficient, borderline and deficient B12. So we found both types of diet. We found D3, the non-vegetarian diet, D3 was slightly higher, 25% deficient. So it didn't make non-vegetarian diet, vegetarian diet did not make much of an impact on D3. Whereas B12, again, we found higher deficiency in vegetarian diet, B12. Red is the deficient. We found a little lower in vitamin D in vegetarian diet, but as far as B12 was concerned, the red is more in the vegetarian diet. They were red as far as B12 is concerned. They were more deficient. So, and we again did a separate group among the corporate industrial area. We did in the corporate factory workers and those are working in corporate employees, vegetarians. So we again in this also we found these levels of D3 was very high level of deficiency. Right side is D3, male, female, we found very high level, almost 90 to 80 to 100% people working in corporate offices. Now they are sitting in air-conditioned offices. They hardly go outdoor. So this 80 to 100%, right side is the vitamin D deficiency. So almost 80 to 100% of corporate workers were having vitamin D deficiency. And of course, B12 deficiency was less compared to. So, and now the malnutrition in this is the middle age, the working class, corporate and all, they are likely to have vitamin D because of a changing occupation, more of indoor and dietary. Yeah. And elderly malnutrition can contribute to poor health in many ways. Firstly, it can cause physical decline, loss of muscle mass. It can increase mobility and mortality, and it can affect our activities of daily living, and it can lead to frailty, wasting, and undernutrition, loss of muscle mass, sarcopenia, osteoporosis, osteomalacia, in particular in women. Then micronutrient deficiency, as we have discussed for B12 and vitamin D, it can also affect the elderly. And they may also suffer from fat and protein energy malnutrition. And the BMI may be reduced. So because there are social factors, most of the joint families disappearing, many elderly may be staying alone. They may neglect their diet out of being lonely, reduced income, and they may be due to depression, because food and nutrition is a lot of social element in it. So staying alone, there may be apathy and neglect of nutrition. Then there are certain physiological changes which may affect your absorption and metabolism, and the comorbidities, so which Dr. Mansi will discuss in detail, the clinical aspects. So these are elderly also, it's a challenge. And I will just briefly touch upon, we are, as a poor country, we have been more concerned about malnutrition, and still we are concerned. As we saw, low birth weight is pretty high in our country, 20%. Under 5 malnutrition is 30%. I mean, it's a very matter of great concern. But we are a growing economy, and with the growing economy, we are having an affluent class and sedentary lifestyle, automobiles, then office work, which is hardly involves any physical activity. So we are having overweight problem. Globally, we are having overweight problem, and the global currents are touching our urban area, particularly the urban middle class. So half of humankind will be overweight by 2015. And whereas undernutrition killed 1 million, obesity may kill 3 million, 3 times more. And here also we saw during earlier we used to teach that obesity is related to non-communicable disease. Now we have changed our teaching. Obesity can increase susceptibility for viral infections. We have seen in COVID that obese people were 3 times or 5 times more vulnerable to bad outcome from COVID or other respiratory infections compared to people who are not overweight. And this has been shown by geographical trends also. The Western countries, the overweight percentage is more than 60% compared to Asian and African countries where the obesity overweight percentage is around 20%. So whereas 20% of our people are overweight, 60% of Western population is overweight. So the mortality was much higher in the Western countries besides the age. Japan is a good example. Japan, obesity, they are not very obese. They are very old people. Their longevity is perhaps more than the Western country, but the obesity is just like Asian. So there, the mortality from COVID was just like Asian countries. So that, and another outlier is Brazil. Brazil is a young population, but the obesity is same as Western countries. And their mortality from COVID was 3 times higher than Asian countries. So these are definitely, obesity was a bigger factor in the respiratory infection also during the last pandemic. So we say that obesity can be also a high risk for not only non-communicable disease like heart disease or diabetes or hypertension. It can be a risk factor for communicable disease also. So this is the social changes. These are the healthy meal. As I said, Japanese people are the least obese and the highest, longest lived longevity. So they have adequate fruits, vegetables, whereas this is the American fast food, which are middle class with the market forces. We are also fast adopting, and the urban middle class is fast putting on weight. So these are some of the future challenges we have to face to prevent primordial prevention or primary prevention to to check these unhealthy habits entering our population before it is too late. So these are some of the references I have given, from which I have taken the figures, facts and figures. So I think that's all. We can take any questions if required.
Our second guest for today is Dr. Mansi Patil, who is the Chief Program Officer, Hypertension and Nutrition, IAPN, India. She is a UNICEF-trained TOT for the National Register of Citizens and Infant and Young Child Feeding. She has experience in clinical research, parenteral and enteral nutrition, and healthcare information technology. Her work is focused on preventive aspect of cardiometabolic syndrome and its epidemiology, especially related to hypertension and its dietary lifestyle behavior risk factors. Dr. Patil is currently a committee member of the Women in Hypertension Committee with the International Society of Hypertension and an interventional member of the American Society of Preventive Cardiology and Europe Association of Preventive Cardiology. We welcome you both to Doc Plexus. It's a pleasure to host you here today. You may begin with the presentation.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this session by Doc Plexus. I'm Dr. Mansi from Pune, and we would be talking about the nutritional aspect from the womb to the tomb. This being the National Nutrition Month, I think it's imperative that we talk about nutrition not just from a clinical aspect, but from a more lifestyle aspect and a life cycle aspect. So that is what we'll try and address today. To begin with, we need to be very sure, we need to understand that nutrition is an integral part of being healthy and of life itself. We are looking at nutrition, playing a major role, be it for a pregnant mother, a lactating mother, a child, an infant, to toddler, an adult, or even an older person. We cannot ignore nutrition at any point of time, and the nutritional requirements change. The nutritional needs of these people will change as we move across life cycle, with respect to where we stay, as well as the physiological challenges that we are facing. So yes, nutrition cannot be generalized. It is not one glove fits all. Yes, there are certain generalizations we can do, but ultimately as a prescription, when it goes out, it would be an individualized or a tailor-made prescription that we are looking at. Now, when we say it is tailor-made, when we say that it is individualized, what do we really mean? Now, there are various factors that will influence the nutritional intake, be it a person's religion, be it the lifestyle, be it our personal relationship with nutrition, as in how do I perceive nutrition, be it the media or the public health campaigns, or let's say the marketing that goes out with the different nutritional products. I think most of us will agree that the advertisements that we see, especially in children or young adults, they do impact the choice that they make when they go out, let's say in a market, and buy something. The kind of food that is provided in schools, at workplaces, what is encouraged, what is considered healthy, what is not considered healthy, the access that we have to food, the affordability, various psychological factors, social factors, our understanding of nutrition itself. So, all of these factors will impact how and what we actually eat. And therefore, probably what works best in with respect to nutritional intake or customizing and individualizing a nutritional prescription is what we call as a socio-ecological approach, wherein we are looking at the social, ecological, and personal interaction with the environment of a person, and thus deciding what really suits the best for this person. Sorry. Now, when we talk about, through the life cycle with respect to nutrition, we can actually start anywhere. We can start with old age, we can start with pregnancy, we can start with a fetus, we can start with an infant. But I usually prefer that we start with the nutritional requirements in pregnancy, where we do address the need for transgenerational transmission of diseases. We do address that a mother's nutritional requirements, a mother's nutritional intake, the mother's choices for nutrition will impact what the child suffers from at a later age, or how healthy a child is as they progress through life. But before we start, we remember that each trimester has different demands. The fetal growth is different. The requirements are, of course, different. We do see, or we do recommend a weight gain when we are looking at a healthy, normal weight mother. Then we do look at a trimester-wise weight gain as well, which is recommended. But yes, if we are looking at a mother who's maybe overweight or underweight, then the weight targets would change, and that especially demands a very strict nutritional prescription to go out. And therefore, what we see is, one is the BMI of the mother, and the second is what kind of workout a mother has. Are we looking at a mother who's got a sedentary lifestyle, a heavy workout? So what exactly are we looking at? And thus, we will modulate the energy demands for this mother. Generally, we are looking at somewhere around adding about 350 kilocalories for pregnancy, and as a base, we take either the sedentary, moderate, or heavy workout. With respect to energy, again, this energy needs to be spread out through the day. It's not that you have a very heavy breakfast and a very light lunch, especially during pregnancy, because the energy as well as the protein demands are higher. We do need to focus on equal distribution or equidistribution of energy throughout the day. This will work towards a healthier pregnancy. It will cater to the increased demands that the mother has. The different nutrients, micronutrients that we are adding on, be it calcium, iron, folate, vitamin B12, all of these will help with the reproductive development that the mother needs to have. The micronutrients also help in improving the birth weight of the child, which, as we'll see with Dr. Banerjee's presentation, this improvement in birth weight is crucial when we are looking at a developing country. And the demands, until and unless we achieve these increased demands in a pregnant mother, the brain or the psychological, cognitive, the physical development of this child is not going to be adequate. Apart from calories, we are also looking at an increased demand for proteins. Usually, we need to increase at least 9.5 grams per day of protein in the second trimester and about 22 grams for the third trimester, which, trust me, as a pregnant mother, with the challenges, the nutritional challenges that this mother faces, be it reduced appetite, altered cravings, or nausea, or maybe vomiting for some, these achieving these demands does become a challenge for the mother. And of course, we, especially when we are looking at India, we do have a lot of social factors as well, which will determine what a mother can or cannot eat. Uh, but all in all, we do realize that if these demands are not met with, we may look at certain nutritional complications. Most common that we see are the iron deficiency anemia, uh, an onset of calcium deficiency later in life, vitamin D deficiency, maybe not very specific just to pregnancy, but the whole of the population that we have. Uh, it could be inadequate weight gain or excessive weight gain, depending on what spectrum of malnutrition that the mother lies in. A culmination of all of these could result in preeclampsia as well, raised blood pressure, or gestational diabetes. Folate and neural tube defects are still a challenge. It's not that we've been able to overcome all of these, and therefore a planned pregnancy is always considered a much, is considered to give us much better outcomes, or, the gestational outcomes are much better when we are looking at planned pregnancy, especially with 3 months in hand, wherein we can, if a mother is deficient, we can give ample of supplementation with respect to nutrition. Now, it's not, looking at in our society, unfortunately, we are still looking at mothers who are malnourished. So the pre-pregnancy weight itself is on the lower side. And during the pregnancy, the weight gain again is not very high. And that does become a major contributory factor towards fetal malnutrition, as well as a higher mortality rate for the mother. This again, with fetal malnutrition, we are looking at a low birth weight child where the fetal mortality or the infant mortality would be higher. There is an impairment in the cognitive development. The child could land up being stunted, as well as that leading to an adolescent who is stunted. The physical and the mental capacities both are hampered in such a case. And with this stunted adolescent, especially if this is, if we are looking at this adolescent then going into in the adulthood and becoming pregnant, this becomes a major vicious cycle. Major, again, with this, of course, the mother being malnourished is a major factor. But what also adds on to this irony is that there are frequent infections for this child. The introduction of complementary foods happens either early or late and does not really happen at 6 months. The exclusive breastfeeding that is expected, again, is not achieved for still a major bulk of the children. And all of this, believe me, will also lead to a malnourished elderly. And hence we are back to that vicious cycle where malnourishment is at the core. And beyond that, we also do see that there are increased incidences of teenage pregnancies. They could be, postmarital or premarital. But yes, teenage pregnancies is a reality that we are still struggling with, which could be because of a lot of socio-ecological and socio-economic factors. It is also because of a lack of the knowledge and awareness among parents as well as the adolescents. This again is maybe, it again has malnutrition at the core. And we do see that it is attached with a huge social stigma. There are, abortions or MTPs which are done illegally. These mothers will then go into further malnutrition. A lot of them go into a lot of psychological disorders. There are increased chances of stillbirth and maternal mortality. And the effect on the child is, again, we are looking at either IUGR or we are looking at a very weak and malnourished infant. Now, beyond pregnancy, the next stage that we see is lactation. And with lactation, again, what we need to focus on, be it in a clinical or a public health area, we do need to look at a multimodal approach to achieve adequate lactation, be it initiation of breastfeeding within an hour, be it exclusive breastfeeding, or continued breastfeeding for 6 months, plus complementary feeding with breastfeeding, and maintaining maternal and infant health. This requires maternal counseling. It requires a family-based approach or a community-based approach. We need to be cognizant of the fact that it's not just the mother who decides how, when, where the breastfeeding is done, although we would like to believe that's the case. But yes, there are other social factors that will come into picture, be it the community, be it the family, be it economics, and absolutely anything. I mean, the mother could be working and does not really know that, or is not very sure how breast milk expression can be done, or the mother really has a lower expression of milk and probably does not know about galactogogues, or does not know whom to approach for this. And thus awareness becomes very important, especially in this era of technology, of internet, where information is available, but a lot of times, unfortunately, it's not the right information that the mother lands up accessing. So with respect to a diet for pregnancy and lactation, if you really ask, it is a healthy diet with increased energy, increased protein demands, and therefore an increased protein and energy, as well as certain micronutrients in the plate. If in case we do expect that the mother is not going to achieve the nutritional targets over a period of time, then we may need to think of ONS, that is oral nutritional supplements for the mother. Ultimately, the aim is that the mother should achieve the nutritional targets that we have set forth for a mother. Very few researchers focus on specific or traditional foods that are there in an Indian scenario, but there are certain which do support the use of these food products either as galactogogues or to improve the nutrient assimilation. But again, we need to be very careful while we use this. The different food products that are traditionally available, as long as there is no drug-nutrient interaction, there are no contraindications, and ultimately the mother achieves the nutrient targets. Now, breast milk is something that, again, taking forward the aspect of traditional foods, a number of times we do hear about different food items altering the breast milk composition. So again, go back to research, try and see what works best and what doesn't, and what really impacts the breast milk composition. Ultimately, the breast milk will have nutrients as like carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, and vitamins and amino acids. It will have certain bioactive compounds, which are oligosaccharides, lactoferrin, various hormones, immunoglobulins, which is again very helpful for the child, cytokines and extracellular vesicles, metabolites, and glycoproteins. The impact of diet cannot be eliminated from breast milk composition, but what are the food products that would impact will vary. So it's something like one of the most common ones that I have heard is that the moment you drink milk, the calcium or the protein content of the breast milk goes up. So no, that doesn't really happen. It is not that immediate. It is not that instant. Yes, the circulating calcium levels or the protein levels, it does create a reserve in a mother's body. But it is not that just drinking milk immediate, 5 minutes prior to breastfeeding will improve the calcium or the protein content in the milk. What milk rather does is that it aims at, improving the letdown reflex. And so warm fluids basically will improve the letdown reflex, which lead to a better, a higher milk product, basically not production, but release of milk and lactation. Now, these are certain studies that I found on herbal medication. And if you look at these are done on a very heterogeneous group of mothers. The factor studies were again very heterogeneous. Not a lot of positive results were reported. Some of them, yes, do say that yes, it's a better outcome, but still there are certain food products, something like Shatavari, where it is actually studied on mice, and the human effects have not been studied to a very great extent, although whatever studies were there say that there are no side effects that have been identified with the intake of Shatavari. But to some extent, there are some of the studies have mentioned that Shatavari increases the serum prolactin levels. So that's something that, yes, if you're looking at a reduced prolactin level, probably then Shatavari intake could help. Then there are certain food products, something like fenugreek seeds and fenugreek tea, which was recommended, but again, it did not produce a very huge difference in the milk production. It was basically used as a galactagogue, but as compared to a placebo. So the tea did not have a very huge influence, although the fenugreek seeds, they landed up having a better effect as compared to seeds. Moringa was something that was found to be very effective, which did increase the milk production and as compared to the placebo group. But this was done in mothers where there was a normal spontaneous delivery. Now, during infancy, when we look at nutrition, again, of course, the first 6 months should be exclusive breastfeeding. 6 months, after 6 months, we are looking at breastfeeding along with complementary feeding. Up till the age of 1 year, cow's milk is not something that is recommended. But what you see, or what becomes a major challenge, is the failure to thrive for IUGR, low birth weight babies, children or kids, where the malnutrition is evident. Iron deficiency anemia has become much more common, and you'll have more frequent infections, be turning up with these children. The vitamin D deficiency is also something that crops up, and yes, iron and vitamin D is recommended by pediatricians in certain cases. The child may land up having food allergies, which we really, initially in the first post 6 months, when we start complementary feed, it becomes important that we understand the allergies and sensitivities. The best way to do this is introduce one food item at a time, and reintroduce if the child doesn't accept it. And usually we give a gap of 3 days between introducing 2 new food items, so that we do know that if there's an allergy that crops up, then it is because of what food. And that's been a more standard protocol. So 3 days, every 3 days is what you introduce to the child. Cow's milk or soya, those are probably, nuts and eggs are the most common allergies that we see. When we talk about nuts, we need to look at cross allergens as well. So if a child is maybe allergic to almond, we need to look at other nuts also. Usually when we are talking about allergy, we will see that a child allergic to nuts may land up being allergic to the other food items, the other nuts as well. In case of milk allergy, yes, you do get food supplements or formula feed which does not have lactose in it, or a lactase can be introduced, or non-dairy milk can be introduced for these children. Uh, as a child progresses, the nutritional demands will start changing. Uh, During the first 2 years, if you see, that is when the brain is developing, and therefore the fat requirement is higher. As the child progresses from here, we look at a higher physical activity for the child. We look at more social interactions, and we do look at the children determining what they want to eat. Their choices start coming into picture. So the eating habits are actually inculcated at a younger age. So if fussy eating and picky eating, probably the seed is sown at a very younger age. This could lead to eating disorders, dental health issues, obesity, micronutrient deficiencies, and undernutrition. Uh, Constant positive reinforcement is the is one of the core concepts with children, giving them a variety, giving them options which are healthier, explaining to certain extent what is healthy, what is not healthy, and uh, how to include healthy food items becomes important for children. The look, the smell, the presentation of food is important, and therefore plating food becomes an important aspect when we are talking about nutritional requirements, or administering the nutritional prescription for children. There is something called as a NOVA food classification. Now, as health professionals, we need to sort of be aware of this, because that is what will help us give a prescription. What is processed, what is ultra processed foods come into picture here. Usually ultra processed foods are where cosmetic food additives have been added, and processed foods are where there could probably be further cooking that is required of these food items, or they are more industrial based foods. The culinary ingredients are the sugar, salt, the fat content. So that again, it is not that you do know that we need to stop the sugar, fat and oil. It is that we need to give them more in moderation. Unprocessed or minimally processed foods are considered the best option. And but yes, with these times, once in a while, probably the inclusion of processed foods is acceptable, but that should be kept at minimal. And the predominant diet that a child has, or an adolescent for that matter, should be of minimally processed food items. It's interesting to see that for an Asian population, the intake of milk is below the recommendation. The intake of omega-3 fatty acids and whole grains is way below what is recommended, but we do land up achieving adequate nuts and seeds. The intake of trans fatty acids, sodium, sugar, as well as a lot of fiber is something that is more than adequate for an Indian population. The vegetable intake as well as fruit intake is also more than adequate for us. But what we need to focus on will be the inclusion of whole grains, and that is probably why millet has come into discussion now. And but then millet consumption should be probably 1/3 of the whole cereals that we are consuming. Mortality again, or DALIs due to diet, if you really see, so a high sodium, which as we saw earlier, is high in Indians. Same goes for high, a low whole grain diet. Those are probably the two major causes for mortality. and dalis, which an Indian population does have. Fortunately, the fruit intake and the vegetable intake has been pretty good for us. But yes, it has been declining over a period of time. We also realize that the fruit vegetable intake in Indians probably could be reflected or could be altered because of the accessibility and affordability as well. Now, coming to the nutritional requirements in elderly, with each decade that as age progresses, we do land up reducing the total energy intake for these people by 10%. Additionally, if we are looking at an elderly who's malnourished, we may need to give an additional 400 to 600 kilocalories. It's important for in elderly to not only assess malnutrition or undernutrition, but also look at dehydration, sarcopenia, as well as frailty. There are certain validated standardized tools for eliciting sarcopenia, but using it in regular practice is important, where we are looking at muscle mass, we are looking at muscle strength, we are looking at any etiological or phenotypical characteristics as well. A nutritional prescription should be around this. For a healthy elderly, maybe we are looking at about 1 gram per kg body weight of proteins, which will go up to 1.2 to 1.5 grams in case we are looking at an elderly who is malnourished. But then this is something that needs to be stepped up. So you start with whatever an elderly is consuming and slowly step up the energy and the proteins for this person. Some of the factors that lead to malnutrition or nutritional complications in an elderly are a reduction in the taste and the smell. There are chronic health conditions that we are looking at, as well as polypharmacy for prescribed and unprescribed drugs. So there are medications which are probably not the prescription medications that the person is consuming, and hence taking a history for these people also, or for these medications, is also pretty important. To summarize, during pregnancy, we are looking at an increased requirements for proteins, energy, essential fatty acids, vitamin A, C, B, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, iron, zinc, copper, chromium, selenium, iodine, manganese, and molybdenum. In short, we are looking at almost all nutrients being increased. If we are able to give a healthy diet and a complete diet to a pregnant mother, we should be able to achieve these. For early adulthood, we are looking at an increase in vitamin C, B, choline, magnesium, chromium, zinc, and manganese. For females, probably the requirement for iron is slightly higher. Again, iron deficiencies are still common, and which do lead to a lot of other complications as well. Therefore, including iron-rich food items is important. And for elderly, we of course do think of calcium, vitamin D, protein, and energy. Energy, especially in case where we are looking at a malnourished elderly. If the elderly is not malnourished, then we reduce the energy, the energy by 10%, and that becomes something that caters to the energy requirements as advancing age and loss of muscle mass for the elderly. I think that's it from me. I hope this was helpful, and I'd like to thank Doc Plexus for inviting me here for the session today. Thank you.
It was absolute pleasure listening to you. Very well presented session. A lot of takeaways for the audience. We have a few questions from the audience. With your permission, let's go on to the first question. My first set of questions are for Dr. Amitav. My first question to you is, how can we improve surveillance systems to better monitor malnutrition trends and identify at-risk population?
So yes, nutritional surveillance is a very important tool to find out. One is this surveillance system already inbuilt is our National Family Health Surveys. As I said, once in 5 years, we have this All India survey, large population, and we found almost 30% of our children are under 5 children are malnourished. So this is one aspect. And besides that, There are chain of sub-centers, primary health centers, Anganwadis. They're under 5 with the immunization. They have got a under 5. ASA workers, Anganwadi workers, they are supposed to monitor, particularly Anganwadi, they are supposed to monitor the child nutrition. And because a major problem we have got a child, child malnutrition. So that has to be monitored well, surveillance system. So we already know that antenatal mothers under 5 children are the high risk group from our surveys and studies. And of course, it will require a large surveillance system to cover the other population, the middle age and the elderly, as we are seeing that the malnutrition problem. But some studies can be, periodic studies can be done on random sample, or whatever studies independent researchers do. They can be, they can be linked up. Nowadays, retrieved, internet is there. So this can give us the high risk group. In our country, it is the children, which is high risk group. I think that is that answers the question. Nutritional surveillance, we are already having 5 years, but we can, in the meantime, between the surveys, National FHS, National Family Health Service, we can have the data which is available from Anganwadi and sub-centers, which are looking after children.
Thank you for answering that. Moving on to the next question. What policies and programs can enhance food security and reduce the risk of malnutrition, particularly amongst low-income population?
Yes, there are, as I said, there are centers which they are home visits according to then there are program for pregnant mothers, there are program for under 5, there are program for adolescent girls, because nutrition starts before the womb. In fact, we have covered womb to tomb. You see, the girl is malnourished, she grows into a malnourished woman. She grows into a short-statured woman. So the program is there in the Anganwadi for adolescent girls also. Nutrition monitoring, nutritional packets are given to them, foods is given. Then in the schools, we have got the midday school program. So that is also, it improves the school attendance also, and it improves the nutrition also. Besides that, there are home visits by these workers, Anganwadi workers and field workers, identify the child. Then there are nutritional rehabilitation programs. So these are some of the programs which is in the POSAN program. So number of programs are there which are addressing the particular child nutrition and maternal nutrition and adolescent girls.
Excellently answered. My next question to you is, how can evaluation findings inform evidence-based policy and programmatic changes to combat malnutrition effectively?
How can evaluation finding, this is a gap here. I feel there's a gap here, because most of the time the policies are just pushed through without weighing the evidence. As I mentioned now, we have launched to tackle the nutrition, the anemia, to tackle the anemia, which is a major problem in women and children. We have launched this fortified rice in the public distribution system. As I said, the evidence is not very firm how much impact it will make at the population level, because the rice keeping quality, the iron, whether it is required for everyone, what are the causes of anemia, there are so many unanswered questions. But definitely there is a scope for having better evidence to guide our policy. So first, if we have to launch a policy, we have to review the evidence available. If the evidence is available, accordingly we can guide, the policy can be guided. And if the evidence is not there, we can have pilot projects to gather the evidence, which was planned for this fortified rice. But before the evidence was collected, before the studies were done, this program was launched in a hurry. So there is definitely a need, particularly nutrition there are a lot of uncertainties in nutrition which works for some population may not work for the other. There are a lot of cultural differences in the food habits. So launching a program without proper evidence is not only the lab evidence or evidence in one particular. Evidence also has to be collected from different socioeconomic groups and different cultural groups. India is a vast country with varying food habits. So if you have not considered, because if you are fortifying rice, there may be certain populations in the country who may not be rice eaters. So it will leave that out. So yes, I agree that the evidence, in theory it is there, but in practice, there's a lot of gaps in evidence.
Thank you for answering that. My next set of questions are for Dr. Mansi. So my first question to you is, how do you tailor nutritional interventions to meet the unique needs of patients with different age-related challenges?
Thank you for that question. I think that's a very relevant question in today's time, because when we are talking about a nutritional prescription or advising nutrition, like we discussed, age does matter, but tailoring it for age, I think we'll go back to the socio-ecological approach where we say what the individual requirements are. Of course, that goes unsaid, which has a very scientific basis. We have the RDAs with us, no doubt about it. But apart from that, we need to look at what the environment is. We need to look at what kind of a support, be it social or familial support, that this person achieves, be it an infant, be it an elderly person, be it let's say a working mother. So yes, those factors do come into picture, but to decide on the energy, protein or the micronutrient requirements, we can go back to what the RDA says. There are certain thumb rules that we have for energy calculation, which say 25 kilocalories per kg body weight for probably someone who has a normal weight with no comorbidities and has sedentary to moderate exercise or workout. But that again becomes more individualized. It has, I think the calculation itself, if we don't go into it, what we can consider is the socio-ecological approach, the affordability, the availability of food items for that person, and what kind of food a person would require for that age group, probably, if that answers the question.
Thank you for answering that. My next question is, are there emerging technologies or tools that are particularly promising in the field of clinical nutrition for addressing malnutrition?
Absolutely. I think from UNICEF to private companies, everyone has come up with tools, be it the list tool that we are looking at, which talks about the multifactorial multifactorial aspects of malnutrition. All of those do come into picture, but for ready to use tools, there are nutrient calculators available, both as mobile apps as well as softwares. There are a lot of nutrient databases that are there, which help us in planning the diet. So, for example, we are saying one roti. So how much of nutrition is this one roti going to give, depending on how much of wheat flour you've used? So yes, there are those tools. Apart from that, I think there is also, AI coming into picture, where predictions have been made based on what a person eats, or what kind of diseases the person may end up having. There's also therapeutic, planning that can be used using these AI tools and softwares that do exist in the market today. A lot of work is still being done in the field of digital therapeutics, but nutrition has been important, be it tracing nutritional requirements to sort of a nutritional prescription coming out of these, using these tools. We do require certain training for using them, but it is not a very extensive training, that at least the tools that are there readily available in the market, you can use those tools with minimal training as well. But I would advise that understanding the nutrient composition of food items, standardization of recipes becomes more integral for the use of these tools.
Excellently answered that. My next question to you is, are there ethical consideration or dilemmas that arise in the context of malnutrition treatment, and how do you navigate them?
I think when we talk about medical science, ethical challenges, dilemmas, considerations are part of it. What I've realized is if you go back to the basic, the core concept for ethics in medical science does not change, which is to do no harm. I think that's where we start with. The other is, being fair to everyone. So whoever the patient is, whoever is your, the patient in front of you, giving a fair treatment to all is irrespective of any other factor becomes important. And it's not with respect just to malnutrition. It is, you'll get it with absolutely any health concern that you come across. So, beneficence is important. We are looking at doing no harm. We are looking at, adequate counseling, being just. So, going back to the ethical principles that we've always learned, the 12 principles, the 12 ethical principles that we have for medical practice, I think that's where that will help us navigate any ethical dilemma that does arise.
Thank you for answering that. And my final question to you is, what are the nutritional requirements for optimal growth and development during the teenage years?
I think what the nutritional requirements, we can again, let's simply go back to the recommended dietary allowances that ICMR and NIN have come up with. What is more important in adolescence and teenage that we need to understand as practitioners is that we may land up thinking something has, something, a particular diet is very important or a particular food item is very important, but convincing them to make them believe that yes, this is what is important for them is a greater challenge for us. What I feel is involving them in the process of from buying food up till to the cooking of food is again essential. The way we approach food in each family differs, and somewhere we need to educate the parents as well that what is the nutrition which is healthy. We cannot just say that, let's say you have parents or family members probably not eating healthy and yet asking a child to have something that's very healthy. It doesn't work that way. Eating, diet, nutrition has a very major social implication. It has a huge impact from the social factors. So apart from just calculating the energy or the protein or the micronutrient requirements, which are increased for teenage, we do need to cater for the sexual development. We need to look at the fat and the protein deposition that the adolescents would have. We need to prepare them for future, the future younger adulthood that they would enter in a few years. But apart from that, their approach to food, their relationship with food, their understanding of nutrition needs to be addressed. And simply giving them a diet chart is not going to help out. I'm assuming this is to do with more from a public health aspect as well, because a lot of these kids probably won't even come to us during adolescence until and unless there's an absolute clinical indication for it. So from a nutritionist's point of view, I'd say that we as nutritionists or we as healthcare professionals have to be deeply involved in the public health aspect as well to address this issue of what the nutritional requirements or how to achieve the nutritional requirements for adolescents and teenage.
Thank you so much for answering that. This brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Amitav Banerjee and Dr. Mansi Patil, for your time and effort in putting together this interesting session. I hope our audience enjoyed your session thoroughly. To our dear viewers, thank you so much for attending this session. Do share any more questions if you have. Until we see you again, take care and happy dog flexing. Thank you.